I will never recover from the MCU cutting a Black Widow storyline that would have made Bucky Barnes' next appearance even better. Marvel cut a potential Black Widow storyline that would have altered Bucky Barnes' next MCU project, and I truly wish they hadn't. The main focus of the franchise has always been the flashy action and over-the-top heroes. While romance isn't always featured in every project, Marvel has usually used romance to add some emotional weight to certain storylines. Not every couple has been a hit with fans, and some anticipated couples have yet to make their MCU debut, but it's a shame that one romantic pairing will never even get a chance to begin. One of the MCU's biggest romance misses was Natasha Romanoff and Bruce Banner's brief fling in Avengers: Age of Ultron. Though their chemistry wasn't necessarily bad, it was more so due to Scarlett Johansson and Mark Ruffalo's great acting, rather than the characters actually feeling compatible. Since that film, Natasha has luckily been allowed to grow on her own without depending on a romantic partner. However, I would have loved to see one of her comic relationships make it onto the big screen. Bucky Barnes and Natasha Romanoff's comics romance, explained. The two met in the Red Room. In the Marvel Comics, Natasha and Bucky Barnes crossed paths while in the Red Room. After surviving his and Steve's World War I mission, Bucky was found by the Soviet Union and recruited by the KGB. He was experimented on and physically enhanced, becoming the super soldier that we know as the Winter Soldier. He was then recruited to be a trainer in the Red Room, which is where he first met Natasha. The two developed a romantic relationship but ultimately got separated by the Red Room staff. Natasha and Bucky presumed the other dead and went on with their lives, but they met again shortly after 2006's Civil War event in the comics. Bucky wanted to reclaim his best friend's weapon after Steve had supposedly died in the conflict, and he recognized Natasha while fighting over the shield. The two reconciled and started fighting side by side again, but a Red Room assassin soon targeted them and tampered with Natasha's memories. She forgot her memories of Bucky, and although she'd eventually get them back, their romantic relationship was never the same. Bucky having a history with Natasha would have made Thunderbolts even better. Bucky is working alongside Natasha's sister. Natasha is no longer in the MCU following her death in Avengers Endgame, but her spirit still lives on in her sister, Yelena Belova. She will be appearing in Thunderbolts alongside Bucky, and their dynamic could have been made so much more interesting if Marvel had just adapted his romance with Black Widow. The MCU has already explored Yelena's dynamic with friends of her sister, such as her emotional confrontation with Clint Barton in Hawkeye. Considering that one of the draws of Thunderbolts is how these anti-heroes will work together, an existing connection would have shaken up the group. If Bucky and Natasha's romance was MCU canon, he would have already had a built-in dynamic with Yelena. Things could have started off rough as they did with Clint with Yelena, thinking that Bucky didn't do anything to save her sister. But it would then turn to understanding as she realizes that he was snapped away too. They could have bonded over their love and grief for Natasha while also having to navigate their professional relationship and the greater team dynamic of the Thunderbolts. It also would have been one more thing that tied the new era of the MCU to the original Avengers. The MCU could still adapt the comic storyline, but I hope they don't. A Bucky and Yelena romance would not work. There is still one possible way for the MCU to adapt Bucky and Natasha's comic romance, and that is through Bucky and Yelena. However, I really hope that Marvel doesn't go in that direction. Though both Florence Pugh and Sebastian Stan are adults, there is still a substantial age difference between them that would make for an uncomfortable romantic dynamic. If anything, they would likely come off as more of a brother-sister pair, and I just don't see a romance between them working. Having Bucky and Yelena get together would just seem like a storyline out of left field for someone who doesn't have the underlying context. For MCU fans who haven't read the comics, they don't even know about the Bucky and Natasha romance. Having Bucky and Yelena get together would just seem like a storyline out of left field for someone who doesn't have the underlying context. At this point, it's too late for the MCU to adapt this romance, and that's okay. I'll always miss the storyline that we could have had, but it is much better for Marvel to just let it go rather than force it into the MCU in a way that doesn't feel genuine or romantic.